So I know I said it with the Genova 1 test, but I have to say this is another one of my favorite tests. The things that we pick up on this stool sample are pretty remarkable, and the transformations we see by correcting the gut are absolutely phenomenal. So this is it's a test called the GI map, and it's from a company called Diagnostic Solutions. What's unique about this stool sample, and it's just one stool collection, not a lot of fun to collect, but it is very informative. It is a DNA-based test. So this is new technology or newer technology, and the benefit of this test versus the traditional culture testing is that it picks up on a lot of bugs that were traditionally getting missed by previous tests. So this test is broken down into a couple different sections. In the first section is the acute pathogen section. This is not something that we typically will see a lot of problems with. These are the bugs that cause acute problems, usually your gastroenteritis or your food poisoning, or severe diarrhea. These are things like C. diff, E. coli, Shigella, Salmonella, Yersinia, Cryptosporidium, Giardia, Amoeba histolytica, adenovirus, norovirus, more of these acute bugs that will cause issues for people in the immediacy. And we do see them pop up even in people who are asymptomatic, but what we're more interested in finding and evaluating on this test are the chronic markers. These chronic markers can lay dormant and just be sitting in your gut, festering, causing systemic inflammation. Remember how important the digestive tract is. It's where 80% of your immune system resides. It's where 90% of your serotonin that controls mood and energy is created. It is important for detox. It's important for the digestion and absorption of all of your nutrients. And it's being linked to almost every condition or chronic disease out there having a healthy microbiome. So we have to pay attention to the gut. And I order this test on almost all of my patients. Even if they're not having acute gut issues, we have to see where things are at, because we know that inflamed intestines will cause problems with diabetes, with cardiovascular disease, with autoimmunity, and the list goes on and on and on. So we have to look at the gut. It's a foundational place to start to achieving optimal wellness, and it's got its fingers into every other system in the body. So the test starts off with the chronic disease, looking at H. pylori. Now, H. pylori is a bug that most of the world actually has. A large majority of the world actually is infected by H. pylori. But our society is a little bit different. Our guts are much more depleted than in other places. So H. pylori that may be tolerated by one person in a third world country, can be very problematic for us, and it's been linked to ulcers and cancers. But again, some people have H. pylori and they do perfectly fine. What's unique about this test is it looks at these virulence factors, which gives us a little better of an understanding of if this strain of H. pylori is going to be problematic for each individual person. It also looks at the good flora, the normal flora, which we want to be hardy. We want to have a lot of the good bugs to crowd out the bad bugs, and it gives us an understanding of where the gut microbiome is. Now, again, we're just brushing the surface with stool testing, but this gives us a good clue on where to start with some of the probiotics. The opportunistic bugs are the bugs that a lot of people will have, but if the levels are too high and if the good flora is too low, these critters can be problematic. So, what we want to make sure is that there's not an abundance of these dysbiotic opportunistic organisms. And sometimes we'll go after these with herbal treatments. Sometimes we can just crowd them out with the good guys, and by building up the microbiome and focusing in on digestive health, we can really limit these. Now, I work with a lot of autoimmune conditions, and these are bugs that have been associated with different autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. These bugs are things in it. I'm telling you, it's amazing to see the correlation. We'll have someone come in with rheumatoid arthritis and boom, they've got Proteus or Prevotella. So we want to make sure that these bugs are not popping up. And if they are, we have to get rid of them, ideally with herbal therapies. That's traditionally where we will start, but each case is different. Looks at a bunch of different fungal species and viruses, and then the test also does a very comprehensive analysis of protozoa, which are, parasites and worms. Make sure you don't have any of those buggers popping up or going undetected. And a lot of people do, and they cause a lot of digestive discomfort and symptoms. Intestinal health markers are at the last portion of this test, looking at how your pancreas is working, how you're breaking down fat. And that is absolutely essential because this is how you extract your nutrition, and how you take food and convert it into energy is how you digest and absorb it. And a lot of times people are deficient in bile acids, so they can't break down fat soluble nutrients or pancreatic enzymes or stomach acid. So this is a very important portion of this test. It also looks at some detoxification markers to make sure there's no blood in your stool. We look at the immune system. There's an anti-gliadin antibody, which looks at your intolerance to gluten, just one of the many markers that can be assessed to evaluate that. Calprotectin looks at inflammation, and zonulin is an add-on test to help us figure out where you're at from a leaky gut standpoint. And then if you do have H. pylori, it does an antibiotic resistance panel to see which antibiotics would and wouldn't be beneficial. But even with H. pylori, which is a tough bug to treat, we will often go at this with herbs first to see if we can eradicate it sooner. But this is the GI MAPS test from Diagnostic Solution. This is a foundational test in the practice. I highly recommend it. It is a game changer for a lot of people. This helps us really understand where your gut health is actually at, so we can make the fastest progress forward to get you back to that state of health that you know you deserve.